Welcome, New Templars. I'm Dylan Lewis Monroe, aka A145, the Map Maker, and in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys some of the downloads that I have been receiving in this little light code journal of mine that I've been sitting in my meditation pyramid throughout the first month of 2023 and getting these downloads. They have been accumulating and I've been wanting to share them, but I've been a little bit hesitant because some of them are a little controversial. It's dealing with some really deep subjects, questions to God, about Satan, Lucifer, good and evil. And so these downloads might ruffle some feathers if you're not open to opening your mind and not sticking to one book's interpretation of the higher realms, the higher dimensions. This might trigger you. You might want to watch a different video, but if you're ready to dive in with the map maker and really think about our reality with a critical eye, discerning point of view, and drop all the bias, you might hear something in these downloads that really resonates with you. And I do think we're going in a good direction as a humanity, as a culture, and as a spiritual species on this planet. I think we have a lot to look forward to, but it's going to take us setting aside some of our old preconceptions and confronting evil head on, essentially confronting the things that make people uncomfortable. So like I said, I'm not exactly excited to share these, but it's something I felt that I need to get off my chest. And I also feel like my guides, which I'll just say up front, I'm not channeling demons. I guess I would kind of consider this channeling in a way because I kind of go into a meditative state and do a lot of thinking and then write specific messages as they come, not necessarily in a time sequence, but the most important ones that come through. And I've shared many times on this channel, my guides include Sananda Jesus, Ashtar Command, Archangel Michael, who I identify with on my soul level, and sometimes mantid beings, sometimes other benevolent star systems, all affiliated with the Galactic Federation of Light. But a lot of the times for these messages, I'm really just trying to talk to Source or God. I mean, I've been using the word God a lot more recently and really asking to see God, asking to communicate with God. And some could just say I'm channeling my highest or higher self, which I'm fine with that too. These aren't necessarily signed messages as I've received in the past. And so I'm never really sure if I'm receiving it from myself or for a book or for a video. But I really feel like I'm receiving these messages because my guides, those groups, beings that I just mentioned, want me to share this information with people. And I feel that this is the most important thing I have to share with you guys as well. I could just report on the news. I do think that Russia is going to make a huge shitstorm in Ukraine pretty soon. Maybe Taiwan's going to happen at the same time. It's going to get pretty crazy here on planet Earth for a few months or years. But I really feel like these downloads are tapping into the core of everything going on the planet, even the spiritual battle between light and dark, that this whole White Hat Alliance battling the deep state really boils down to. Some of these downloads were sort of initially triggered by me watching the video exposing Freemasonry by Altian Childs, the X Factor winner, who I talked about that video briefly and linked it 2 videos back, like a 3-hour video expose on Freemasonry. And some of the things that he brought up in that, saying how evil the Freemasons are, but how these elites are obviously all Luciferian and evil. But it just got me thinking, like, these are the ones kind of running our religions in a lot of ways. And so where does that leave some of our religions? A couple of things he said in that video that got me thinking along these lines were, their truth is that God is the devil and that we are living in hell. They run charities, nursing homes, and children's hospitals in the open, while they propagate smut, violence, debt, and atheism in secret. So I'm just trying to reconcile, how did the Freemasons become the most preeminent secret society on the planet? reconciling these things in my own meditations and my questions that I'm personally posing to Source or God. They taught you spirituality is witchcraft because once you really tap in, things start going your way and outcomes are easier to manipulate. But they prefer us when we're frustrated and mad at the world instead of tuned in with it. And that's something that I call them the pineal gatekeepers, which are the ones who run the organized religions on this planet. They don't want other people tapping in to their pineal gland and their cosmic telepathic abilities because they want to tell you how to worship and who to worship, and basically to do the intermediary work so that you have to pay them to worship their God. Another thing that I've been thinking a lot about and wondering about is the Masonic connection with Luciferianism and the quotes from Albert Pike, such as that of Lucifer, the light bearer, strange and mysterious name to give to the spirit of darkness. Lucifer, the son of the morning, it is he who bears the light, and with its splendors, intolerable, blinds, feeble, sensual, or selfish souls, doubt it not. And of course, one of Albert Pike's most famous quotes, I beg your pardon, that one I already read was the quote from Morals and Dogma, and his other one is, that which we must say to the crowd is, we worship a god, but it is the god one adores without superstition. To you, Sovereign Grand Inspector General, which, by the way, is the highest rank of Freemasonry, we say this, and you may repeat it to the brethren of the 32nd, 31st, and 30th degrees, that the Masonic religion should be, by all of us initiates of the high degrees, maintained in the purity of the Luciferian doctrine. If Lucifer were not God, would Adonai, the God of the Christians, whose deeds prove cruelty, perfidy, and hatred of men, barbarism, and repulsion for science, would Adonai and his priests calcimate him? Yes, Lucifer is God, and unfortunately Adonai is also God. For the eternal law is that there is no light without shade, no beauty without ugliness, no white without blacks. For the absolute can only exist as two gods, darkness being necessary for light to serve as its foil, as the pedestal is necessary to the statue, and the brake to the locomotive. Thus the doctrine of Satanism is heresy, and the true and pure philosophical religion is the belief in Lucifer, the equal of Adonai, but Lucifer, God of light and God of good, is struggling for humanity against Adonai, the God of darkness and evil. So that's a pretty twisted quote. pretty much inverts everything you thought about good and evil, but granted, it's coming from Albert Pike, who is pretty well known among truth circles to be possibly one of the most evil people who ever lived. A very high degree Freemason, I believe possibly associated with the Ku Klux Klan, Southern Confederate general. Heard rumors that he ate the flesh of his enemies on the battlefield, and if he's involved in these occult organizations, most likely ate the flesh of children in satanic rituals in secret. So can you take someone like that's word? I don't think so. But whether you call the good God or the good Lucifer, both these sides, the good and the evil side, both believe in good and evil. They just flip the names of the good and evil figures at the top of this whole hierarchy. So I was thinking about those Albert Pike quotes a lot throughout these downloads, and just trying to reconcile with my contact with Source God. What is this relationship? God, Lucifer, good, evil. Please explain it to me. So before I get into all of that, I want to throw in a quick shout out for Deep State Mapping Project, and also remind you guys to subscribe onto this video down in the lower right corner. Also share this video and our other videos if you appreciate them. And as you head over to deepstatemappingproject.com, which is the first link in the description, you can sign up for our newsletter on the homepage to stay in contact and find out about all our new video drops, expos, new map and artwork launches, sales as well. We have just released the World Hierarchy Pyramid, which I have the first prototype of the poster right here. It's a pretty wild and crazy diagram, and I am planning to do an explanation of it here sometime in the near future. This was actually the first proof of the poster version of the artwork, and I have since updated it and updated the file on the website. So we are now selling what is the final version of the artwork. It's still the made-on-demand version. I think I may order these in bulk. But we are also just released the flyer version, which comes as either plain cardstock or a laminated cardstock. I like to have both versions myself because it's nice to have one you can take around with you, hold in your hand, look right up close to it, and another one, which with this one in particular, there's so much detail in the background that I really like the poster version a lot more than the flyer version. They're not equals, but they do have essentially the same information. And I made all the fonts bigger on the flyer version as well so that it should all be legible if you have 20/20 vision. So we're selling a lot of those, and I just want to briefly give a shout out to everyone who's been purchasing the Healing Web poster and laminations. This artwork that I created in 2019 has actually been going viral just recently through a lot of people sharing it through all different networks. There's been Instagram influencers and TikTok influencers making their own little 60-second videos about this diagram.
Okay, so I wanted to show y'all something before we get into the real cold and flu season. So if you Google the Healing Web and put in like holistic, it's going to take you to a site where you can download this web. It's really good to have this. So like if you ever get sick or anything like that, or you come into an issue, you can find different holistic ways to heal yourself. On the left side of it, it's going to show you what the Western medicine, like doctors will tell you that you need to do and different things that they'll give you based on your diagnosis. On the right side, it'll tell you holistic ways that you can actually fix it. In the middle is the index of every issue that you might be going through, and you just follow the color of whatever it is to find out different ways and different things that you can do to treat the issue that you're going through. So yeah, look this up. It is really a lifesaver to me, and I just wanted to put y'all on before the real cold and flu season come.
And so it is all over the place. It's blowing up. It's really important right now to understand alternative medicine, and a lot of people are learning for the first time that big pharma is evil and out to kill all of us. And this is just a great roadmap to departing the big pharma system and learning about all the best holistic remedies that I have learned about and researched over my years. And I have done a lot of research, and that's this whole side of the map. And there's even more than this out there, but this is a great start off point for people that are just learning the truth about big pharma. And one other thing I want to mention is that the Cult of Bale has also been going quite viral lately too. There's been a lot of different Instagram shares of it, and these posters are flying off the shelves. And of course, can't forget to throw a word in for ASEA. I'm still taking ASEA every day, at least 2 or 3 times a day. I love this stuff. I do believe it's the elixir of the god. I'm also drinking salt water at the same time. This is electrolysis salt water that has massive healing and performance enhancements, as well as longevity benefits. They are not even paying me that much to promote, but I wish you guys could all try this. It's awesome. There'll be a link in the description where if you want to sign up for a subscription, which I highly recommend, you click buy here, and then is the second link down to sign up for a subscription to ASEA Redox Supplement. I personally love the stuff. So definitely check out deepstatemappingproject.com and subscribe to the newsletter. And now we will get to the channeled material from the Light Code Journal. So since I set up this meditation pyramid in my room, I've been sitting in it ever since the beginning of January, and I actually went through the first 3 days of January from this journal in my video with High Vibes Up. and it's pretty dense, it's pretty heavy stuff, and I'm not sure how much, I'm not sure if I'm going to get all the way to the present of what I already have here, but let's dive right in. And of course, there were some messages personally for me that I will skip over, but I'm sharing the stuff that I feel is relevant for everyone to hear. So let's dive right into these Light Code Pyramid channeled messages from the Light Code Journal. Now, this is beginning on January 3rd, 2023. We are living under the most intense technocratic totalitarianism and mass hypnosis ever documented. But all we need to do is realign our timeline by manifesting the correct timeline. That's why it's called 5D chess. You agreed to play. It's the ultimate challenge. This is what happens when AIs get too good. Chessboard worlds are created. The AIs make themselves into the Nutcracker Kings and perpetuate checkerboard matrix. God is that which gives life. Satan is anything that opposes the status quo under corrupt rulers. So that is society's sort of inverse definition of Satan. When you have Satanists running society and they tell you something is Satan, that means it's probably good, right? And there's many other definitions of Satan coming up here. So some of these may even contradict, but under different circumstances, they're both true at the same time. Satan is also the personification of evil, the blasphemy, the Baphomet. What is the message for humanity at this time? I ask my guides. Wake up or perish. We cannot protect those who by their own accord embrace self-destruction. What is the message for those already awake? Cavalry is en route. Artillery is inbound. Hold the line. Release chakra pulse. Sometimes I get just weird names in my channel material. I got L. Eudonymus. Then on 1.5, I got the download Cell Lightning Supplement about ASEA itself. I've actually been getting some downloads about ASEA because I do feel like this is a cognitive and psychic enhancement as well. What does Cell Lightning Supplement mean? It's essentially because this fluid has been electrified, it's like adding additional electricity and lightning to your own bodily system, giving you more life force energy. Just brief advertisement thrown in with my downloads, but that's how much I like this supplement. It almost becomes like, you know, like the holy water that you're drinking because you feel like it's that good for your body. So on 1.5.23, I'm asking and wondering, my guides, what's inside the Kaaba? As I'm sure you've seen, the Kaaba is the most holy location in the Islamic religion, located in Mecca. It's the black cube. And, you know, they may tell us some things that are what's inside it, but I don't think they don't usually give you like a live stream. You can't exactly tell what's inside of it. And so there's a little bit of mystery to the Kaaba. And as I was, I guess, attempting to astral project my consciousness or remote view inside the Kaaba, what I was shown was a small wooden pyramid, kind of beat up and old, that would represent God inside the Kaaba. And I was just thinking, you know, what if the God that all of these Muslims are circled around this black cube worshiping is just some little effigy like that, a little tiny wooden pyramid? Wouldn't that be ironic? You know, I'm not saying that's what's in there, but I think I'm being shown this as somewhat of a metaphor. You know, I mean, whatever is in there is not like a plasma Star Trek teleportation machine where like God phases in. You know, it's probably something of earthly materials. I mean, they do have the tektite in the wall of the Kaaba. Maybe that's the most important feature. But just to imagine, you know, what if you get to this end of the road of your spiritual journey looking for God and you find some sort of banal, ordinary object like a wooden pyramid, and it's like, oh, that's the big God behind the curtain that I've been looking for this whole time. You would be left, questioning, back to questioning, maybe God is something you can't necessarily find on a physical plane. Maybe it's something inside of you. Maybe it is you. Maybe all of us are the eyes of God. Maybe this is the ascension dimension. As I've been doing a lot more research on Islam and the Kaaba, as well as Judaism and King Solomon's Temple, the story of Abraham and Isaac, I eventually came to discover that in the Bible it says that the events of Abraham being asked to sacrifice his son Isaac occurred at a place called Mount Moriah. It was an outcropping stone, the Jews say, in the hills of Jerusalem area. And this is this exact same place where it's said that Solomon built his temple on top of this outcrop stone. But if you look up Mount Moriah on Wikipedia, you see a few different perspectives on it. The Jews aren't the only one who think they know where Solomon's temple was. And apparently, which I had not heard before, it's common knowledge, I'm sure, to Muslims, but Muslims believe that Solomon's temple was actually near Mecca, as was Mount Moriah, as was the place where Isaac was asked by Yahweh, God, to sacrifice his son. But the Muslims believe that it was not Isaac he was asked to sacrifice, or I'm sorry, Abraham was sacrificing his son Isaac, according to Christians and Jews. Muslims believe he was asked to sacrifice his son Ishmael, who is the son of Abraham that Muslims believe that they are descended from their entire culture. So I found that very interesting that, different religions have such different interpretations of these physical events. Both can't be correct, right? Maybe they can both be correct, but I feel like it's either one or the other. If there was a Solomon's temple, it was either on Temple Mount, as the Jews believe, or in Mecca, as the Muslims believe, but that's a pretty big difference in location. And I was also reminded of the white quasars, which is actually referenced on my cult of Baal diagram here, in thinking about this question of the ancestry of the Jews today. And I've actually been wondering, about these, I'll say, conspiracy theories that some people say all the Jews today are descended from the quasars. They're not the original Hebrew Israelites. And I've often questioned, if the original Hebrew Israelites were the original Jews, which, that's where Judaism comes from. So we have to say that they were the original ones. All of those such people, I would believe, would have been Arabic, correct? I mean, they're coming from the Levant region, unless there was certain tribes of white people and certain tribes of Arabs in the region. But I believe that even according to our history, the Jews evolved from a sect of the Phoenicians and the Canaanites, and therefore they would have been the same ethnicity. It wouldn't make sense for them, the original Hebrew Israelites, to be white, light-skinned, when their fellow tribesmen, who eventually were of a different religion, were of an Arabic descent. And so I do find it kind of hard to understand why the majority of Jews today are essentially, look like they are white. And I know that some of the Jews actually in Jerusalem have more Arabic features, but simply because of the ethnicity of most Jews in our world today, I think there's reason to maybe question if they have actual lineage to Israel and, that Canaanite region, or if maybe there might be more related to the white quasars. And what are the white quasars? Well, the white quasars were the ruling class of the quasars. And Khazaria was a region which is now partially Kazakhstan and partially Ukraine. Ukraine's more white. Kazakhstan's actually more Mongolian or Asian ethnicity. And actually the capital of Khazaria was Atil, which was squarely placed on the further East Sea, the Caspian Sea, and in the more Asian Kazakhstan territory. And so basically, what that download is saying, white Khazars, is that maybe the Jews today really are descended from those white Khazars, as opposed to what would have been the more Arabic ethnicity Hebrew Israelites. Maybe they really have no connection at all to Israel. I wanted to throw those two downloads in there. They're sort of addendums to our previous videos, but a little bit off the main topic here, but it's all connected, of course. Getting back to the bigger question of Lucifer and God. And this is when I'm really thinking deeply about those Albert Pike quotes that I read earlier. Lucifer is God, but it's not what you think. God is everything in all space and time. Lucifer is the light bringer, but Satan is an aspect of God that questions itself, the life taking as opposed to the life giving. But the life taken away goes somewhere to become something new, new life. The system recycles itself. Checkerboard world is a metaphor, which I discussed in my video about 5D chess and plays a prominent role in the new diagram. You see some checkerboard world up top here. Checkerboard world is a metaphor of the 3D world, trapped in duality. Competition, separation, us versus them, lack of oneness, and higher judgment. Once you hit 12D, you're going to want to start going back down. The 11D is not going to look so bad after all. The grass is always greener. I've been feeling a sensation of FOMO a lot recently this winter, the fear of missing out. But what am I really missing out on? I keep searching for it, the it factor in the world. Maybe I am it. Maybe I bring it. Is that my ego talking? Is that my Yitza Hara, the demon whispering in my ear of vanity and ego? No. When I'm sitting in my pyramid and I hold my Metatron disc, this one I'm holding right here, which we do sell this Pleiadian disc on deepstatemappingproject.com. Under the menu, you go to miscellaneous and then Pleiadian. But as I'm holding this disc in my pyramid, I was looking up at it, asking God a question. And because this is made of crystal glass, essentially what I was seeing as I was looking up at it was my own eyes looking back at me. And so it's like every time I'm asking God a question, it seems like in my experience, he often turns it back at me, like I'm asking myself, I'm looking at myself, because I was looking up at a mirror. And the message I got was, fulfill your part of the plan and do not cause yourself to needlessly suffer. All will happen in due course. You need not rush. Take care of your vessel. I keep trying to talk to God. What if his name's not God? Every time I ask for God, he turns it back to me. I was gifted with a degree of clairvoyance. That's how I create all these maps and artworks, is I have an ability to see these things in my mind before I create them on the computer. But I lack a high skill in clairaudience. How close do you walk with the Father? God is the pencil and Satan is the eraser, but at the end of the day, the eraser is a part of the pencil. Now it jumps forward a little bit to my download from January 17th, 2023. And this one was quite the doozy. Again, kind of starting off thinking about Albert Pike's assessment that Lucifer is God, and what does that really mean? This is when it gets into some of the real meat of these downloads. How much time are you spending per week trying to figure out if God is Lucifer or not? Does anyone really know? Everybody's trying to figure out what's good or bad to put in their bodies. You can't always rely on what feels good, because candy tastes good, but we all know that it's bad for us. There is dissent over virology and objects whose existence is only truly provable by advanced scientific instruments like electron microscopy and massive, expensive scientific installations such as CERN. Have a look at their opening ceremony at CERN and imagine the most advanced level of science on the planet Earth believes itself to be the beneficiary of Lucifer. Satan is technology, just as God is akin to being locked naked in a jungle, a laboratory named Eden. This whole experience is God. Don't you get it, you dumb fuck? Whomsoever desecrates a feather of Abraxas shall elect to descend downwards in spiritual evolvement. Why do words and numbers engross the human mind? A mind trapped in a mesh shall never see the oracle of the oasis. Enter the polygon of the hyperverse of the time cube matrix. Dimensional distortion cannot interfere with the mission. Your reality is like a clock, a Swiss watch of gears and pinions, hierarchy and order. Sometimes it needs to be rearranged into more optimal formations. That's why the old matrix is currently purging. The code itself is being purged. Select all your products wisely, for we know extermination campaigns are at play. Government tasked to regulate are carrying out these programs. We are approaching the final seal of Revelations. It ends when God's army returns. Congratulations if you didn't get the mark of the beast. It was the vaccine. Listen to me, chelas. There is no need for fear, rage, joy, or any emotion when you have stillness and peace, the eternal calm of the sea, of the desert and the forest. There is a place for the excitement of the city, but at present, our cities are occupied by the 5G kill grid. How could the Lightbringer be the same one as the Prince of Darkness? It doesn't even make any sense. If Lucifer is God, that would mean that God is Lucifer as well. Therefore, Lucifer would become as good as God, and God would become as evil as Lucifer. They would cancel each other out and become Abraxas. From the Gnostic mythos, both statements are true, that God is God and that Lucifer is God. That God is the Most High and that Lucifer is God too. Hence the checkerboard. They figured this out a long time ago. If the entire priesthood, who taught humanity who God is, secretly believed that Lucifer is God, that should maybe give you a hint about something, and should at least give you pause to question the teachings of that priesthood. There are so many lessons on this road, but if you dwell too long on one, you will sink to the bottom of the abyss. By the way, the Gnostics say that Jesus and Lucifer were brothers. Any lightworker is doing Luciferian lightwork by definition. How would you explain to a blind mole what light is without using the word light itself? You could also apply this to a human, but I often receive my downloads in the form of analogies to other species, other animals' perspectives. I'm very tapped into my animal spirit guides. So in speaking to a mole trying to describe what light is, I would say, Soil is less dense than rock. Air is less dense than soil. And light is less dense than air. If you want to think about this in terms of different dimensions, you can think of the rock as the 1D, the soil as the 2D, water as 3D, air as 4D, and plasma as 5D. I was then shown an analogy that the Earth is like an eyeball floating through space. Sorry, flat earthers. Click away from this video if you're a flat earther. But I was shown, well, I'll just say, my leading theory on the shape of the Earth is the hollow toroidal Earth theory, because I've seen so many toroids everywhere. I mean, if you go back to that documentary, Thrive, the famous documentary Thrive, talked about how you just see the toroidal shape everywhere in nature and in the patterns of energy. And so it makes sense to me that maybe our planet Earth does have what you could consider a retina on its northern and southern pole. And I was shown that the Earth is essentially like an eyeball floating through space, the eyeball of Gaia, and through the North Pole, the light's coming in from the universe, and it goes through the planet, and then much like the eyeball's retina strings that come out from the back of it, energy comes out the back of the Earth in the magnetosphere and goes back around into the top, back into the North Pole. So again, I really like analyzing fractal formations where you can, look at biology on our scale, the Earth surface level scale, but then you see biological elements on the galactic scale as well. So, a planet's like a big eyeball. And I've even been shown more recently that maybe the way we portray God often and angelic beings as eyeballs with wings surrounding them, these are called seraphim sometimes, other types of angels as well. Maybe this is kind of a metaphor of the way a spiral galaxy is formed, with the center of the galaxy being the central consciousness of a god or an angel, and these spiraling galactic arms are possibly interpreted as the wings, by more primitive people than us who haven't necessarily seen these galaxies close up, but they have this intuitive understanding, or they've seen them through astral projection, and then they translate those structures that they've seen in their third eye into regular everyday objects like humans on the Earth surface level. So getting a little bit later into the month here, on 121, sitting in the pyramid, I was told to use the copper pyramid as an orgone regeneration chamber. Now, this pyramid actually came with an orgone sphere at the top, and I have since placed an orgonite pyramid underneath the chair I sit in the pyramid. I think the more orgonite we get in here, the better. We're trying to bring energy into this pyramid to enhance my own meditations as well as my own healing. And any of us can do this, create a healing chair for yourself, or a healing area like a regeneration chair. Maybe this is how we are supposed to live, as opposed to just plopping down on the couch, vegging out and being hypnotized by a TV. I'm been told by my guides to get away from the harmful EMF devices, and that's something that I really have to focus and meditate on to force myself sometimes to get away from them, because obviously they can be very addictive. I'm told the pyramid is helping my health as well as my psychic abilities, along with the ASEA. And then I'm shown a checkerboard. I'm shown that source is equivalent to this checkerboard. There's only 4 squares, 2 dark, 2 light, and 2 dark, and that there is good dark and bad dark, and there is good light and there is bad light. And I could give you examples of all of those. There is good nocturnal animals, such as the owl, such as the raccoon. I mean, just because it's dark doesn't mean it's evil. And then there's bad light. You stay in the sun too long, you get a sunburn. You too much light coming out of your stove and you set the house on fire. Then we obviously know the more well-known examples of good light and bad dark. But I have been told many times by my guides that dark and light are not necessarily equivalent to good and evil. Either dark or light can be either good or evil, and that's always important to keep in mind because I think that's the way that the dark has been doing a lot of trickery over the past couple thousand years. Between the Egyptian and the Anunnaki gods, which were sometimes depicted as reptilians, the answer is more often the Anunnaki gods, who are sometimes depicted as men in stone reliefs and other times depicted as very much looking like reptilians, the same type of reptilians that apparently from the stone reliefs they were in contact with in Central America in the Mayan and Aztec civilizations. The Egyptian pantheon has some reptilians as well, the most notable one being the god Sobek, who is an alligator's head with a man's body. But my guides say that some are good reptilians. And when you have like a reptilian head with a man's body, I'm constantly asking my guides, what were the Egyptian gods really? Why are they depicted with a men's body and an animal mask essentially? And I think there is a very good possibility that these were extraterrestrials who wore disguises to essentially like a magician or an illusionist to essentially dazzle the human populations and make them think that they were, more mysterious, more superhuman than maybe they actually were. Or maybe they were chimeric, lab or designer created beings that actually did have, functional animal heads on human bodies, much the way that there was genetic splicing beginning to occur in Atlantis before its fall and the creation of centaurs and other such mythical animals. So there's a few different possibilities there. But in general, in my downloads, I'm getting more of a sense that the Egyptian gods were maybe not more of an all-light pantheon, but were more aligned with balance and advancement than the Anunnaki gods, who were more of just slave drivers. Now, some people will say these were the same set of gods, simply renamed for two different cultures. But I would say that's up for debate, and that's one of the things that I'm still investigating, and that I think a lot of other people should be more open to considering, because I see people, watch one video, then make a quick decision like all of those Egyptian gods were just as evil as the Anunnaki gods. I'm trying to find out who's the worst evil one. If you're not with Lucifer, then you're a Satanist. Which is better, the light bringer or the eater of souls and children? We are caught up in a cosmic space battle of epic proportions. What if God is the one who put Satan in charge here? What are you going to do about it? It's up to us to change it or tune to a different frequency. We call it the 5D. Some have had experiences such as these: the breakdown of reality itself, time-space anomalies. How are these explained? Whomsoever disturbs the chess master's program will be targeted for deletion. What's outside of his system? God. God can take any form. He takes all forms at all times. The devil distracts from true purpose and leads into temptation. Most people worship an ancient torture device, the cross. It would be like starting a religion today whose symbol was the electric chair. And 2,000 years later, it's still the most popular religion. Just saying, it's not the right way to honor Yeshua's legacy. A prince of peace, like King Arthur and Guinevere, who are related. A Jedi is serious, not about bullshitting all the time or gossip. That's what Jesus was about, standing up for what was right, calling out corrupt bankers. I've seen before in my dreams a white Draco reptilian stomp a human being who was a slave in a line of many. This is what we are dealing with here. He who controls the storm controls the destiny of all. We have to build a light code matrix within the matrix to break it. Let's play a game. Who made the Matrix? Was it Lucifer or God? Going back to a concept I discussed in my second Origin of the Jews and Origin of Islam video, which was Solomon's Temple and the Brazen Altar, I was looking actually today at a photograph, or actually at an artist's interpretation of what the Brazen Altar looked like in its heyday, as well as the area of Solomon's Temple, which we will pop up here. And this artist happened to include in it the blood that was said by the Bible to be smeared along the base and on the four corners of the four horns of the altar. And the download I got was this. The brazen altar of Solomon's temple was made to look like the head of Baal, with smoke coming out of it at the top. What makes it look like that are the four horns on the four corners. And if you were a person looking at this from any of the four sides, you would essentially see what would look like a square or rectangular shape with horns on the top. It would look like something out of Hellraiser. But has a truce now been made between God and Lucifer? Last night, I dreamt of escorting Lucifer like a prisoner, and I was the guard to another location. I don't remember too much detail, but I know that I was holding a great sword. To the Christians, what are you planning to do about the devil and hell? If God put him there as a prison, why does he rule our world today? If God created him, why can't God destroy him or rehabilitate him? Why eternity in a pit of fire? Why not, like the trash on your computer, just delete the unwanted program? I think the pit of fire isn't working and someone needs to go down in there with something more powerful. Maybe that's my job. What if love is the most powerful thing you can bring down in there? Love and forgiveness. Will that make the demons squirm away from the light? Or do we simply need to nuke hell from orbit? A145, Gamma Q, and the Aldebaran Council. There are too many people letting Satan run rampant in their lives while proselytizing about their own grandeur. So guys, those are the downloads from the month of January. Some pretty intense and dense stuff in there. And I apologize if it jumped around a little bit. Sometimes there's long gaps between one sentence to the next where I'm just thinking about, so many different things, traveling all these different astral realms. And then when I get a statement or a sentence that I feel really is important to share, that's what I write down. And so sometimes there is more thought from one sentence to the next. And, maybe you want to slow that down, re-listen to it, and just take one of those sentences or statements and, really think about, if it's a question, what is the answer to you, and really do some soul searching to try to help us figure out this big puzzle of our reality. Is God or Satan in charge here? Because even the Bible says this is Satan's domain. This is Satan's kingdom here on earth, because we are, this sinful world led by corrupt governments and corrupt religious institutions. And so, I don't know if this video was a little preachy. I'm sure the Christians may have found it a little bit like satanic. But, these are the deep questions we need to ask. And I know there is a strong contingent of the Q movement that I really feel is so fundamentalist that they almost want to go back to like the Inquisition and Auschwitz. And I don't think that's going to be the answer. And, Catholicism is definitely one of the main problems in our world, because of the leadership being satanic. And I think there's maybe less of that in the Protestant denominations. But, we had this battle in the 1500s when the Protestant Revolution began. And, I don't think the solution to the cabal, the Luciferian satanic cabal taking over our world, is going to be, Protestantism having a resurgence. I think we'll kind of get back into the same situation with that. And I think we need to really look into our own souls, to really evolve spiritually. And like that can still include Jesus Christ. Like I said, Sananda is one of my main spiritual guides, and I think he's a guide for the good forces in a large portion of our part of the universe. He's high up there in the Great White Brotherhood, and yeah, these are some New Age ideas. But as ETs start showing up in this Great Awakening process, we're gonna have to process and figure out which of these ETs are good and bad, and it all just goes back to angels and demons. It shouldn't be so hard for some of these fundamentalists to figure out, but we're going to have to use that discernment because a lot of these demons present themselves as angels. And Lucifer, they say, is the evil one, but he's the bringer of light, which doesn't really make sense, and therefore we are left to wonder if he is the good or the evil one or not. And if he is good for a period in the early part of the biblical story and the story of our universe, if God did create our universe, but then turns evil, turns into Satan for the next part of the story, is it really eternity in the lake of fire, or is there more to this story? Like, can there be a reconciliation between Lucifer and God eventually that could maybe end this perpetual duality and this checkerboard matrix that we are trapped in? If Lucifer, or Satan, could turn back into Lucifer, make amends with God, and this war in heaven could end, maybe that would end the duality on our planet. And so we need our light warriors to really be prepared to dive into the depths of the darkness, into the black 4D muck, and figure this shit out. Send these programs back to the recycling bin, or upgrade them to become light again. Because I think having this hell pit, this hell matrix, which is our world, and allowing these beings to even exist in perpetual suffering and torture, as most Christians actually believe. This isn't my belief, but I'm thinking from this mainstream Christian belief. Maybe that's not the best solution. Maybe that's actually perpetuating torment and suffering, to have that still in existence as punishment. Maybe we need to let go of that ideology. And so that's why I think that we need some evolution beyond Protestant ideology as well. And I've been watching a lot of SG Anon videos, and I noticed that what began on his channel as what seemed like some serious disclosures and some insider information has become almost like a ministry, a very, classical Protestant ministry. And even the tonality he used with his voice, it has like a hypnotizing effect. I actually measured the frequency of his voice, and it's almost like a pure 182 hertz. I don't know if that's just intentional. This channel, SG Anon, he's so precise and so I don't know if he's trying to be manipulative, but the content of the channel, the way it sort of pampers the audience, and really drums up this like human drama element, and the tonality of the voice, the flow of it, it's almost like very highly tuned information warfare to get people like involved on an emotional level in these videos. And so, I question all these channels, where they came from. I see SG Anon's arc is very similar to QAnon in that it started with some hardcore disclosures and sort of, I would say, de-evolved into simply like ministry. So I want everyone to just keep thinking for themselves, keep being skeptical, keep trying to discern the good from the evil, because that's what I'm trying to do. I don't feel like I have, at least in the past 4 years, ever really been tricked or succumbed to evil or done evil myself. So I do feel like I have a pretty good level of discernment. And in our legal system, they say innocent until proven guilty. But I would say in the spiritual warfare, I would probably more advise you assume that it's satanic unless it's proven to be of God, especially in terms of mass media, products on the market, products in the grocery store. We need the highest level of discernment in all these areas of our reality at this moment. So once again, leave a like on this video, subscribe, and check out deepstatemappingproject.com. Sign up for our newsletter to stay in contact. Again, we've recently just launched the World Hierarchy Pyramid, where a lot of these ideas I've discussed in this video are actually displayed in a pyramidal hierarchy. I think this diagram is actually one of my easier ones to understand, basically how it's structured and what it's actually trying to present. And this is presented from a Christian as well as a Gnostic standpoint. There are, of course, other standpoints and other philosophies that you could analyze the hierarchy from, but those questions really only involve the top tier of the hierarchy. Everything up to the priesthoods and the bloodlines on this planet are pretty well established and backed up by documented evidence. Like I said in the beginning, the healing web is going viral. The cult of Baal is going viral. Intel packets are always our best seller, where you get all of DSMP's best diagrams in one packet. It's not all of our diagrams, but it's all the best ones. And we have just added the new fold out traders and alliances map, which the Intel packet now contains 2 different folding mini posters. It's the best deal on the site, and if you buy the Intel packet, it's actually 25% off if you were to buy everything individually. So people really like getting that package deal. And just want to also say thank you for everyone who has ordered in the past couple of weeks. These 2 weeks have been some of our best sales of the year since we released the Jasara map back in June. And so there's a lot of new people discovering Deep State Mapping Project. Definitely a lot of new people discovering the healing web. And I'm so glad that these diagrams are finally having the effect on humanity that they were intended to. And, you know, my goal with the healing web was actually to save lives that Big Pharma would have otherwise killed, and teach them how to find the right holistic remedies to extend their lives. And as we get past this cabal and past this war between the white hats and the deep state, we're all going to be learning a lot more about longevity and life extension. That's what I believe, and that's what I'm already getting a head start on. So guys, leave a comment below the video if you want to have a discussion about God, Satan, Lucifer, good and evil. I'm always open-minded to these things, and I'm always just trying to think deeper about them and get a better understanding of God, of my role in this world, and how I can be of service to others and help guide people to also discern what is light from dark. So that's it for this one, and we'll see you guys on the next video. New Templars.
Living in the dream world, Neo. This is the world as it exists today.
Welcome to the future of finance. Our movement is about replacing a failed and corrupt political establishment with a new government controlled by you, the American people.